let's talk about one of the most interesting bands that I have discovered in a hot minute. Bloodywood have dropped their debut album, Rakshak.
Let's get to fly, cause I will take the ground. Gigantic is the sky.
I definitely butchered the pronunciation on that, but fuck it.
We're gonna butcher a lot of.
Butcher a lot of
I'm not
pronunciation.
even gonna bother, bro.
Jake, this is the first time I'm looking at this band's album list in the playlist. What the fuck did you add?
You're missing out, Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Really interesting.
This is some of the most creative shit I have heard in a long time.
Indian metalcore.
I can't think of, like, the closest comparison I have is all that, like, Japanese metal that shows up in my YouTube recommended every couple of months, and then I go on, like, a 3-day period of, like, holy fuck, Japanese metal is incredible, and then I never listen to it again. Except the thing is, this album actually has a ton of staying power for me. There are 2 bands that defined my month of February. It is this one and the one we are talking about next. But before I get too deep into my thoughts here, I want to see what you guys think about it, because I feel like I can go on for a while here, and I feel like there's a chance that I'm just going to steal everything you guys have to say, so I want to give you guys a chance first.
I think the cultural influences in this carry the... Like, it makes them unique, basically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, like, it's like my favorite thing to listen to, but just like the concept, it intrigues me so much that I want to listen more.
It's one of those things where it's like you're just curious, you know?
It's interesting. I think is the I sat down and I listened to this, and I was just kind of like vibing the whole time, like not in the sense that this album is like instrumentally vibey, but every song to the next feels like it's got elements of the last, but there's something new to listen to every time. I don't know. It's very upbeat as well.
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
I think I'm at a weird point with the lyricism, because a third of it I can't understand, and then another third of it is like kind of cringy. Like there's one bit where he rhymes like WWE with
into UFC.
UFC.
Yeah, I've got that line written down.
Yeah, and I was like,
you want me to say it real quick? You want me to say it real quick?
Yeah, hit me with it.
We're just saying you better do the shit you say you're gonna do. None of that fake shit WWE, because you know we keep it real like the UFC.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, whatever, sure. But
honestly, that's not the worst lyric I've heard.
You've got another third of this album, which is talking about like economic inequality between like classes. I can't remember what song it is on here, but there's one that is just entirely about like finding rapists and beating the shit out of them.
Yeah, that's Donna Dawn. That's Donna Dawn.
Yeah, and then
I didn't write down the opening lyric of that one, but I'm pretty sure it's something like I punch the skull of a rapist or something like that.
Yeah. And then BSDK. Yeah, the BSDK.exe. I read somewhere that the BSDK thing is like it's an abbreviation for some Hindi insult, and it's like calling women whores or something like that. And then the song is about like, I don't want to say like treating women with respect, but it's something.
Are we talking about music anymore? What the fuck are you guys on?
It's like half of this is like
it's just like listen to this.
It's just like surface level stuff, and the other half is like talking about complex social issues and like fighting injustice. And I was just like the whole way through, I'm sitting here like, this is so interesting. I can't stop listening to it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's so captivating.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to listen to this ever again outside of this month. Like, I'm going to be honest. But for the, like, 2 times that I went through and sat and listened to it, there's not, like, a bad song on here. And it's all just, it's so different. And I'm really glad that this album, at least, like, to some extent, has found success to the point where it's reached, like, English-speaking channels, because I know for a fact that there are a lot of bands out there like this that have that wear their cultural influences on their sleeve that we just don't know about because they're, from, I mean, when was the last time that we heard Indian folk metal or Indian metalcore? We have
Indian folk rap metalcore.
Would we have ever sought this out on our own if this did, like, would you think any of us are going out there like, you know what, I want to hear top Indian folk metal 2022? Like, nobody none of us are going out there, but the fact that this is I want more bands like this because there's got to be a lot more. Gimmick's not the right word, but you know what I mean, like for them it's like a flute, but it's
very cultural influence.
Yeah, it's culturally influenced, and there are a lot of cultures out there that are definitely making this music that we don't know about because we live in America, or even like people in Europe who are, it's more like Eurocentric metalcore. I want more like this that has that cultural influences because it's so new and fresh. And to give those bands like an international stage, I think it'd be really, really cool. So this is a really, really cool album that I would recommend hearing at least once.
It is perfectly fine if you never go back to this album after listening to it the first time.
Yeah.
But you at least need to give this a chance to just experience it. This is like an album that needs to be experienced, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I think at the end of the year, I doubt this makes my top 10, given what I know is coming out this year. But if there is any album outside of my top 10 albums of the year at the end of this year that I want to recommend people to at least give a chance, it is probably this one, just with how fresh and creative and unique and, like, as we've been saying, like, there's a lot to unpack here that I think is really cool. Is there anything else that you guys want to mention before I kind of dig deep into why I fuck with this album hard?
Go ahead.
All right, so the best 3 songs on here, in my opinion, are the first 2 and the closer. Gadar and Aj are fucking nuts. I think particularly that opening riff on Gadar is just crazy. And then I think it's actually a really solid opening track too, because the translation of the first words on that song are "I greet you" in Urdu, "I greet you" in Hindi, which is like a cultural reference. And then like they start getting into like all the political references that they're going to mention. The first lyrics that their rapper says in the entire album is, "I see a state turning to faith, fate turn into hate, hate turn into votes, votes turn into notes." And those notes are what they talk about on the rest of this album in songs like Donna Don or Yacht or BSDK.exe or whatever. Machi Vasad too as well. There's just so much to unpack here. Like I almost don't know where to start. But Gadar is just a sick song. Aj is maybe a top 5 song of the year for me at this point. The opening riff on that song, and then the vocals, the vocal delivery of their rapper. He does like a bit of just like regular singing in Aj, which I really like. It doesn't work on some of the other songs later in the album, but on Aj particular, I think his voice really works. And then that chorus is just an earworm. It's like, it feels like there's a lot of like all the Japanese rock metal bands that show up in my YouTube recommended every couple months that I fuck with for a few days and then never go back to are like, they're cool, but I don't know, the point I'm trying to make, that was definitely very confusing, but the point I was trying to make is that the chorus of Aj feels like a typical structure of an English spoken metalcore song. Whereas a lot of other non-English speaking metal bands that I've heard over the years, typically Japanese metal bands, those choruses don't feel like they have that same structure that I grasp to in a way. But Aj has the hook and the melody, even if I have no clue what the fuck he's saying other than Aj says today. Whatever else he says in the chorus, I don't know. I'll have to look up lyrics, but that chorus has really stuck with me. And then you also get the flute solo in Aj, which is incredible. And then you follow up that flute solo. The moment that kind of broke me is when you get that flute solo and you're like, oh, hell yeah, flute solo? That's dope as fuck. And then the flute solo ends and you get the symphonic female vocals in the background. And I'm like, bro, you can't just keep one-upping yourself like that. Like,
yeah, I think the instrumentation all throughout is...
Oh yeah, the instrumentation is fucking nuts. Yeah. I never thought I would like an album that I'll understand less than half of the lyrics to this much. I'm just thinking back to that Frenia album from last year, where there's like those 3 songs that are in Serbian, and that ruined that album experience for me in a way, just because it threw off the vibe.
You mean broke it up?
Broke it up, yeah.
Made it better.
It broke it up and made it worse, in my opinion. But this song, like I don't understand what Frenia is saying, and it makes it worse. I don't understand what this band is saying, and it makes it better. The logic doesn't make sense, but fuck it. I think Machi Basad is great. I really dig the chorus there. Donna Dawn is also just fucking brutal. Jivarai is very uplifting. I think the one weakness that I have to point to this album is their rappers' kind of more emotional singing voice on songs like Endurant and Yod, where I don't know, there's something that just feels off, where he's singing an Aj with like power and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he gets more mellow, particularly in Yod, it just doesn't come off the same way to me. But that's like really the only complaint I have here. The instrumentation, I mean, the typical metal guitar, drum, bass sounds great. All the Indian influences on top of it are even better. And then, even though I don't understand what they're saying half the time, the vocal delivery is fantastic. And overall, this is an album that I never thought I would enjoy as much as I do, and I'm super glad that I decided to give it a listen. I'm looking at my notes here. There's only one other line of lyrics that I wanted to bring up from Gadar, which are basically where, I mean, I've already said like half of the lyrics of Gadar at this point, but there's a line in that song which is, I don't need no gun, I bring the fire and fury of the third world, son. And I'm like, hot damn, that's bars. That's spitting bars right there, as far as I'm concerned. In contrast to, we keep it real like the UFC, but
yeah, you win some, you lose some.
You win some, you lose some. I mean, I'm sure English isn't their first language, so the fact that they're even saying lines in English as creative as they are here is a bit impressive, I think.
Yeah.
Highly recommend this album. That's all I got, though. And I think that's probably all that you guys have as well, so...